Okay, we're back. One thing I realized after making the last video is that we also should probably cover some web development essential terms. So I'm gonna kind of cheat here and copy the first part of this notepad, and then I'm gonna say new. So I made a new tab, and I'm gonna rename this one. I recommend you follow along so you'll have the same notes at the end of this if you want. And I'm gonna call this one terms. And say OK. So we have our hot list tab, which we were just on. We have terms, and I'm pasting into terms this to just get this going. Web dev essential terms. Essential. Okay, and we'll just start getting the terms defined here. So I don't know if we really need these numbered, so I'll just go with a dash, like a bulleted list, and just say, what did we mention on the first tab that might need to be defined over here? I think everybody knows what Windows is. You know what Notepad++ is now. Let's talk about, we'll put HTML, JSON, and CSS into there to start. So HTML, JavaScript, CSS. Did I have anything else over? Oh, JSON. Okay. Okay, so HTML stands for hypertext markup language. We'll be doing a deeper dive into that, of course, later. But essentially, this is what you use to create web documents. Web pages are made using the HTML, and the markup language part of it is this is the formatting. You can almost replace markup with the word format, and it would be correct format language. This is all the HTML tags that let you define what the body is, what the head is, what a header is, what a footer is, what a header 1 is, a header 2, what a paragraph is, all that stuff. And then the hypertext part is talking about hyperlinks and linking one HTML document to another. You take like build three HTML documents, link them all together, you have a website. So the hypertext part of that is the hyperlinking between the documents. Put it all together, you get HTML as hypertext markup language. Of course, JavaScript is going to be the default scripting language. If I can spell. For well, you could say web apps, websites. We'll just say web development. Keep it simple. But if you're doing any kind of scripting inside of your HTML docs, then chances are using JavaScript. Not saying that it is the only script language you can use, but it's definitely the most popular, and it's been in wide use since the late 90s. So, you know, it's not going away. If it was going to go away, it would have gone away by now. It's only gotten more popular. So it is the industry standard. There's even an industry standard for this. So default scripting language, I'll put in parentheses just a little bit more info here if you want to look it up. ECMA scripting standard. You can look into ECMA scripting, and that'll be possibly another term we want to eventually define on its own, but I'll plug that down here for now. And then you've got CSS. This is, of course, cascading style sheets. Cascading. And this is essentially what you use to bring different types of color specifications, font specifications like the font weight, the font size, what the background color of your pages are going to be. All of this is used to enhance your HTML documents because on their own they can do some formatting, but the majority of it is now done by style sheets, and it's more manageable if you do it this way because you can then have the styles in line. They can be embedded into the head of each document to be document specific styles, or they can be global, where you build a .css file and have a global style sheet specification for all of the documents to use. And then you can control everything at a very high level, so very powerful. JSON, this is, let me make sure I get this right. It should be JavaScript object notation. Just to make sure I'm not lying to you here. Just pull up Edge real quick. I think the way my window size is recording, it's going to be in the frame up to around here. So you may not see anything below that. I'll try to keep that in mind. So JSON, let's say english.wiki. This will give us a high level. JavaScript object notation. I think that's what I said. Yeah. So they define it here as open standard file format and data interchange format. That's what it really is. It's a data interchange format. And it specifically allows us to transmit data as objects. So that's what's awesome about the JSON is you can have an entire object. So they're talking about a person object here. They're describing person, and a person object might contain this data here. Whoops. Bear with me. That data there. And so you see the person would have first name, John, last name, Smith. So these are all properties and values. And you can define as many properties and values and even as many child objects as you want. So you can have address be its own object of other properties and values and end right there. So address starts and ends there. So the objects can be embedded as well. So that's the object part of it. The JavaScript part of it is the syntax of the JSON follows the same syntax as JavaScript. So at this point in time, I mean, there's JSON and there's XML. I guess XML is something else I should add onto here to maybe define later, but it's really not something immediate that you want to work with. JSON right now, though, is the default metadata, or what did they describe it as? Data interchange. Yeah, data interchange format. Both XML and JSON are data interchanges, but JSON is the one that's most popular and in use right now with a lot of the full stack development that's going on and cloud development that's going on. So let's see, were there other terms? I think in yesterday's video, I do remember that I mentioned the term IDE. I think at some point I said a development environment or environment, but I think at other points I said IDE. And so let's get that defined too, since I probably mentioned that yesterday. So IDE is Integrated Development Environment. It's kind of described that way to be generic, so it's not explicitly saying that it's talking about Visual Studio.net. It's not saying it's talking about VS Code or IntelliJ. It's just saying any integrated development environment or IDE. All three of those I just named are specific IDEs. You could say VS Code is also an IDE, and I think I was referring to VS Code versus Visual Studio yesterday when I invoked the term. But that's what it means. And if we pop back over to Wikipedia, we should be able to just say, where'd the search go? There it is, IDE. And I'm just going to try to break that down. Computing, here it is. IDE in computing is an integrated development environment, a software application that provides comprehensive facilities for software development. And then they go on to mention some popular IDEs. IntelliJ, which you can do Java and JavaScript in. Eclipse, same deal. You can also do C++ programming in there. Um, they're not really jumping out at Visual Studio or VS Code here, but trust me, those are also very popular IDEs. So, in my opinion, the two most popular IDEs, well, the two most popular that I'm going to use are going to be VS Code, not to be confused with Visual Studio. It's an IDE from Microsoft, and they say here it's got good support for debugging, syntax highlighting, version control, and are they saying if it's for scripting? Not really saying, but it is. It's mainly for, yeah, here we go. JavaScript's being called out. They're not really calling out, well, there's CSS and there's HTML down here. So out of the box, it's kind of set up for that. It's probably one of the best out of the box for that. Now that's VS Code, but another IDE I mentioned yesterday was probably Visual Studio. I think of it as VisualStudio.net, but I guess it's been renamed as Visual Studio, and that's the full IDE from Microsoft to do all of your .NET coding. So you might be doing C# in there. You can see all of the other languages it supports. Mainly, if I'm in VS Code or Visual Studio, I'm writing C# on the .NET framework. If I'm gonna do JavaScript, I don't like to do it in Visual Studio. I mean, you can do it, but I'm going to be in VS Code. So if I'm doing like a JavaScript UI in React, I'm going to be in VS Code. If I'm going to write a web servers for that JavaScript app to call, I'm going to write that in C# using Visual Studio. So it's more of like back-end development is the way I think of it. And VS Code I use more for front-end development. Okay, but that defines IDE. I think we're up to date on the terms. As we go through some of this stuff, I'll try to bounce back and forth and highlight, we'll get these other terms defined, and then as other terms come up, we'll add those to this list. And so we got a terms tab going here that we can build as we go, and the web dev essentials here that we can build as we go. And I'll go ahead and close this video out for the terms. And then on the next video, we're going to come back and continue to work our way through this hot list for the web dev essential apps. Okay, cool. I'll see you in the next one.